FTD, we are focused on our florists, and we believe that you should always reach full bloom. Because when we work together, we grow. Partnering with FTD can offer you business and design courses to help you work smarter, stay updated with the industry, and stand out. Innovative solutions like Mercury POS are designed to move your business forward and make your day-to-day operations a breeze. Marketing tools are fit for all of your needs, like a highly customizable website to exclusive partnerships that generates additional orders. Trend-forward bouquets are designed to increase orders, profit margin, and customer satisfaction. From unique flowers to curated and exclusive containers, our team is dedicated to help you offer products that customers love. Our exclusive unlimited coverage plan gives florists control of their deliveries and provides you with the online tools to deliver an exceptional customer experience. We are dedicated and invested in your success because at FTD, we believe that together, we grow.
Good afternoon. How are you? I didn't hear you. How are you? Awesome. Are you having a great time? Am I a little too loud? No? Okay, awesome. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the association for the invite. I was humbled and honored to be included in the big celebration, 100 years. Let's give them a hand. And you'll have to bear with me to catch my breath. We did a quick turnover here, so I'm a little winded. But also would like to say thank you to FTD for supporting education and allowing me to share with you some of my passions. And this happens to be one of them. And I was backstage listening to Donald, and wasn't that an amazing program? Absolutely. You know, I always am enlightened and I learned something, and I took away something that he said, and it hit home with me, and I think we all can relate to it. He said, I'm not here to teach, I'm here to share. And I say all the time that we're very informal, just like I'm here to share with you something that works for me or something that didn't work for me. I'm here to learn from you. So at any point in time you have a question or a comment, just raise your hand. And we're going to have a great time. But while I'm thanking the association and FTD, I want to also thank the sponsors that gave us the product, all the fresh product. Thank Connie Douglan for the beautiful linens. Don't you love those? Thanks to Smithers Oasis for the amazing products. Kelly and her team never cease to amaze at their generosity. Syndicate Sales, as well as Accent Decor, provided us with some beautiful containers and hard goods that we're going to showcase today. And then lastly, but most importantly, thank you for showing up. It means a lot to the association and to designers when you walk out on stage and there's people here that's eager to learn, and you're here because you value education. And I believe that is the key to our success, and that's how we're going to change and grow. So thank you, guys. So today, my program is all about brides. Today's brides. How many of you do wedding work? Awesome. How many of you just love those brides? You know, I have said over the years, I'm going into my 18th year. And I can honestly say in those 18 years, I can count 4 that I would label, or close to label, as a bridezilla. Those that just really, really push you to the limit, test your patience. So in 18 years to say I've only had 4, that's awesome. I will tell you this, the last few months, I've been working with 4 different brides, and we have had in our area a little bit of change over the last couple of years. First of all, I'm in South Georgia. I'm in a rural area. I'm talking about 18,000 citywide, county 42. So we're a small town, and for the last few years, most of the brides in my area have been do-it-yourself brides. How many of you have those? Yeah. And so the last couple months, I've been dealing with 3 different brides, and they have really been pushing me. And I use that term loosely because in the beginning, they were really pushing my nerves. And one night, while I was sitting down with the 3rd revision of one contract, I told myself that, yes, this is work. But you know what? I've done without weddings for months now, and now I have a bride who knows what she wants. She provided me with a notebook and pictures. And even though she's changed 3 different times, I told myself, Randy, you got to suck it up. This is what you're here for. And you've been missing this kind of bride, and you need to be the professional and service her and give her what she needs. And in that moment, sitting in my kitchen that night, it was probably 9:30, 10 o'clock, past my bedtime. Pawpaw goes to bed early these days. I realized that we're going to have to work for it. Now, with that being said, there's a fine line there in working for it and being taken advantage of. Can I get an amen on that? Amen. Anybody been there? Okay? So, with that being said, you want to make sure that you are keeping up with your time and you're charging for your time. How many of you charge for initial consultation? Anybody? We got 1. Okay. 2. Good for you. I have contemplated it over the years, but for me, my initial consultation is free. But I am learning. My consultations from a year ago maybe lasted an hour. My consultations over the last few months have lasted over 2. One lasted almost 3. And that was part of my frustration. And I began to think, well, maybe I need to set up some kind of structure where I give you X amount of time. Anything over that, then there's a rate for it. And the reason I say that is because my consultation time takes me away from the bench. And I'm away from the bench means I'm not making money. Does that make sense? So if any of you have some kind of structure like that, hit me up after the show. I would be interested in hearing that. One of those brides I was talking about asked me to meet her at the venue to do a final walkthrough. And this is a prime example where I felt like my time was being taken advantage of. And then I'm going to tell you how I handled it. The venue is an hour and a half away, and I arrived first. Then the bride and her mother and her family members arrived second. Then third came the caterer. The moment the caterer stepped out of their vehicle, her attention went to the caterer and was no longer addressed to me. I sat over at a table in the venue for an hour and a half, no exaggeration, while she met with the caterer. When she was done, she apologized and said, well, maybe I shouldn't have booked you at the same time. And my comment was, in my Southern charm, you're right. And then I continued to meet with her for another hour and a half. Once I was done, I had an hour and a half ride back home. You can imagine what was going on in the cab of my vehicle all the way home. I was on the phone back to the shop venting with my mom. And by the time I got back, I was 6.5 hours invested in this consultation. I don't know about you, but that consumed almost my whole day. And I told Mom, I said, I have to charge her. I have to charge her. But how do I do this without offending her? So once I got all those changes together, I put it all in an email, And when I started the email, I told her how wonderful it was to meet with her today and her family. I was looking forward to being a part of her special day, blah, 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 blah. And I said, due to the length of our consultation today that lasted for 6.5 hours, I feel I must ask for a consultation fee. Now, did you notice how I said that? I didn't say, I feel I'm going to have to invoice you. I said, I feel I must ask. Okay? What that does is that softens what you're asking for or what you're wanting. If I said, I feel the need after the length of our consultation, I'm going to have to invoice you for X amount of dollars. That's a little abrupt. And I do believe it's all in how we interact with her. Do you know she called me just minutes after the email went, and I thought, oh, Lord, here we go. But her call was about something else. It was about an item on the revision. And at the end of the conversation, she said, I'll have the groom-to-be drop a check by to you tomorrow. I said, thank you, and I appreciate that. And that was all that was said concerning that. My point in sharing that with you today is don't be afraid to ask for your time. We are all florists in here, event people, freelance designers, whatever we may be. The most important thing we have is our talent and our time. Because if that bride could do it herself, why would she need us? And if you're going to do something or to create a design for a bride, you need to make money at it. Can I get an amen? Amen. All right, I'm done preaching now. Who's got the offering plate? But you have to love those brides. Are you seeing more brides are wanting to do face-to-face consultations or email? Anyone want to share?
Face-to-face.
Face-to-face still? Okay. Yes. About half and half. Which do you prefer, or which one seems to work the best?
I'm just a small studio, and I love sitting down with brides.
You love the face-to-face. Absolutely. And for me, I get a few that want to do email, and I find that very difficult sometimes because things get lost in translation in text and letters and things. But I have colleagues in my area that are saying that over 80% of theirs is all done via email, and I'm just struggling with that because at some point in time for me, I would want a face-to-face. Are you finding brides are very prepared? Anybody want to share? Y'all are quiet. Yes.
Some are very prepared down to the end of the flower. But what I find now is a lot of brides are saying, and I'll even ask, are you comfortable, or do you have specific flower choices? Are you
Absolutely.
And so some might say, some are not even the foggiest prepared, and some are down to the binder and the folder and the mood boards.
Absolutely. She said that she's finding that some actually are very detailed and they know what type of flowers they want. And then some, and I'm finding in my situation, where more are concerned about a look and a color than they are anything about a flower. Yes, ma'am.
For me, it's Pinterest.
Pinterest.
And also, if I talk to them ahead of time early, I ask them to bring their Pinterest board. I've got Wi-Fi set up ready for them. And I also tell them, even if it's really expensive, what you're looking at, please bring it anyway. It helps me get inside their head as to the look and the feeling of what they want.
Absolutely. She said Pinterest has been a great tool for her, that most brides have boards. And she asked them to bring those in and share them with her. And that has proven to be a really good thing for me. And I love what she said. No matter if it's something over the top and extravagant, share that with her as well. Just like with me, I want to see that. So many times when we go into a wedding consultation, we limit ourselves. Now, sometimes the bride comes in and says, you know, I only got $500 to spend, and I have that deer in the headlight look, like, what am I going to give you for $500? But we limit ourselves. And I found that out with one of my recent brides. She came in and she had me this notebook I told you about, and there was this beautiful floral garland over a doorway, and this beautiful floral garland that lined the aisle. And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's not going to pay for this. You know, it's one of those cases where they bring in this arrangement that's $600-700 with all these orchids in it, and they think it's $50. You know what I'm talking about. But when I began talking to her, she said, this is a must for me. And I didn't go to the attitude, well, you know, this is going to be expensive. Don't do that. You be confident. If that's what they want, then you're like, sure, we can do that. Absolutely. And then the price comes later when you doing your proposal. You see what I'm saying? We set ourselves up when you put that negative out there and say, oh, that's going to be expensive. Don't do that. We hurt ourselves. For me, I am finding that the last 3 to 4 brides that I have, and that those weddings, actually 2 of them are coming up the end of this month, and they're back to back. And one of them's on prom weekend. Lord help us. Anybody want to come to Georgia and work? But we go into this, I guess we've been jaded, or at least I've been jaded with these brides coming in and they don't want to spend anything, but they want the stars, the moon, and the next 3 planets or whatever. And I found that you need to be open. And if they're telling you, and they're using these expressions and they're using these adjectives that say, I want something unique, I want something different, I don't want anything that looks like every other bride that you see online. Okay? And out of those, counting the one in this past December, the 4 brides that I've been dealing with, every one of them, with the exception of one, the first thing out of their mouth was, I don't want bohemian. And I said, no problem. 2 of which said absolutely no eucalyptus. Okay? And I think it has to do with the fact that right now, and you'll see it used on this stage, everything you see has eucalyptus in it. And most of the things we see is this bohemian style. And that's what they're seeing. And it's been out there so long that now brides are wanting something different. And for me, to me, in my area, that's a sign that we're gravitating to another trend. Something different. Just like the millennials, anything that my generation had or my parents had, they don't want. Stuff that we use, or that my grandmother used rather, that we didn't use, is now new to them. Like the big football mums, the disc buds, the glads. They are all very popular right now because our generation put them aside and said, my grandmother used those for funeral flowers, so we're not going to use them. So because they're not seeing those flowers in our design, they're gravitating to something else. Any comments so far? Anything you want to share? You're quiet. I am curious to know how many would share the number of weddings they're doing or they did this past year. Not here to brag. I'm just curious. Anybody?
115.
How many?
115.
Well, praise the Lord. Did you hear her? 150. Are you in a 115? Okay. Are you in a metro area, a destination area? No? What size is your town? I'm curious.
40,000.
Wow. Honey, you are being blessed. Amen. Somebody else want to share? Yes.
The shop does, we have a very large shop.
Yes.
We do between 400 and 500 events, and about half of those are weddings.
And you're in a metro area? Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Anyone outside of a metro area want to share?
Country area, 50.
50? Okay. In my area, before we started getting into the do-it-yourself bride, we were averaging somewhere around 30 to 32 a year. And my biggest year was in 2011. We had been doing a wedding promotion because when I bought my grandmother's shop, she had got out of doing weddings. She was not known for weddings. And for me to jump back into that market, I did a dream wedding giveaway for about 4 years. And because of that, it kept building. And in 2011, we did 62, 63 weddings that year. And for us, that was insane in that small town. We are nowhere near that today because of the fact of the do-it-yourself. So for me to get up here and be able to do some designs for you that we don't get to do that often at the shop is wonderful. How many of you have a contract? I would curious to know, what is your payment plan in your contract? A deposit, I'm assuming. And is your deposit a flat fee or is it a percentage? Flat fees? Half down? Awesome. Awesome. And what is the date when it's paid in full? 3 weeks? 1 month? 30 days? That's mine. Mine is a deposit, and it's a flat fee, and it's $500 deposit. And then any payments or deposits that are paid to me are non-refundable. Now, in my contract, it states that if you need to change the date, then I am flexible with working with you in changing the date, provided it is available. Okay? And it states that. If you cancel the wedding, just for the sake you're canceling it, whatever reason, you broke up, you're not together, whatever, you don't get a refund. And I explain that. How many of you go into detail as to why you're not going to refund money? I'm very upfront with the customer, and I say that you're paying me a deposit to secure my time for that day. And based on your needs, I may or may not can take another wedding that day. So if you cancel on me, then not only have I lost the wedding, the money, the revenue from your wedding, but I've also lost potential revenue. Okay? And 30 days to the date of the wedding, balance is due. And I always, the week leading up to that time, I always send a recap email outlining every detail, asking them to review it one last time. I'm getting ready to place my pre-book on my orders for my product. And then also don't forget that on said date, the balance of X amount of dollars is due. Has anybody run into a problem where someone did not fulfill their contract? And if so, how did you handle it? Anybody? Yes, ma'am. What was their reasoning for canceling, if you don't mind me asking?
The mother is my client. Don't talk to my daughter. She doesn't understand. Okay. I'm the one who paid the money. Okay. They're not getting married, and that's it.
Okay. Let me recap in case you didn't hear her. She had a case where the mother was the client, and I'm assuming the mother signed the contract? Or yes, the mother signed the contract, and she's not talking to her daughter. The daughter's not getting married anymore, and the wedding's not happening. And if you don't refund my money, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to smear your name. We're going to trash you, I'm assuming, in social media and so forth and so on. And did you get, what percent did you get back, or all of it?
I kept a $65 consultation charge.
Okay.
And I waited 2 weeks for everything to simmer down.
Just to see?
And then I wrote her a check.
Okay. Well, for me, in that situation, she said she kept the consultation fee, and then she waited a couple weeks to see if things simmered down, and then she wrote her a check. For me, standing on this stage, it's not for me to tell you how to handle that. That would be a personal decision as to what was more important to you in that moment, in that situation. Sometimes there's been incidents where there's been a complaint, whether it's wedding or not. where the customer was not justified in their complaint, but I just, for the sake of it, just swallowed it and went on for the sake of my business. Now, if there was a contract intact, I would just say, I'm sorry that you're having problems internally, but those problems internally have nothing to do with me. And I would explain how I would be losing revenue, and we have a contract. And I'm sorry. And it comes to a point. You're just beating your head against the wall. And then it becomes, do you want to have the negativity on the street, or you want to stand firm? If you stand firm, and that negativity does go on social media, then you, in my opinion, I feel you have no choice but to rebuttal. And what I mean is just in a nice way, just say, I see that there's some negative remarks concerning my business. That business is between me and that client, but I will tell you a contract was involved and a contract was not upheld. Therefore, there was no refund. And I'm sorry for the incidents, but these were circumstances beyond my control. I just feel like you have to protect. And for you, it came down to, it was rather easier to write her a check than to deal with that. And I can respect you for that, absolutely. It's going to be one of those cases where you have to deal with it. And there's not, in my opinion, and you may disagree, I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think that's a personal decision. I'm just always interested how other people handle those situations. Anybody else? Okay. I only had one. And when it came that 30-day mark, she told me she wasn't paying me her money until I delivered the flowers on the day of the wedding. And her father happened to be a doctor in the community and was my longtime customer. And I just said, I told her, I said, that's in the contract. You signed the contract. I can't order product until you pay me in full. And she said, well, I'm not paying you. And she was very nasty to me in an email. And I took a day before I responded, because, we're quick to do this. But I waited, and I just sent back, and I said, if you're not paying me, then I'm not doing your wedding. I wish you well. And I never heard another word from her. I didn't do her wedding. And her father's still a customer of mine. It's one of those cases. I chose. It's to the point, I don't know, I'm getting old, people. I'm getting old. And I'm one of those things where every day my time becomes more and more precious. And it's not meaning that, oh, look at me, it's Randy Wooten, it's my time. That ain't got a thing in the world to do about it. I get up and I go to work. We all work hard. Don't you work hard? And there's a lot of negativity and ugly in the world. And my patience for ugly is almost gone. And there's a thin line between being ugly and professionalism. And thank God for my mom, because she keeps me grounded. My sister and I, she'll say, be humble and kind. Humble and kind. Because once it rolls off the mouth and off the tongue, it doesn't matter how many times you apologize for it, the damage is done. And so for me, these days when people are ugly and nasty, I take a breath and I find a very professional way to exit from that conversation and from that business. And as much as I need every customer I can get, I don't need that one. Does that make sense? And I'm not being ugly, I'm not being rude. But people have the need, and a lot of brides will, of entitlement. That we're here at their beck and call, and I am to a certain degree, but it's called respect. And I'm going to jump on a little side note here, and then we'll get on to weddings and talk about some designs. How many of you are on social media? Every platform. Do me a favor. How many of you are on different florist groups and different industry groups? Do me a favor. If you don't have something positive to say, scroll on. Okay? Listen, We're here to support one another. And if somebody was brave enough to post a picture of their work, you need to have enough respect to either keep your mouth shut or post something positive and supportive. If you don't have anything supportive to say, please scroll on. Listen, people post stuff all the time that I don't agree with and wish they hadn't posted, but you know what? It's America. It's free speech. There ain't anything I can do about it. But what I can do is control what I do. So, little side note, if you're on social media, please be kind. In the words of my mom, humble and kind. All right, I promised I was done preaching. What do you think? You know, in the South, go big or go home. This is one of the things that we have done last year, and we're going to be doing it again in May. And for me, I call this the Canopy. I'm sure there's another term for it out here. Anyone want to share? You have another term for it when you're describing it to a bride? Anybody? Elevated design. That's very professional. Yes. But one of the things in doing this, many times, it's all about the mechanics. When I see a design on social media, I'm like, okay, how'd they do that? And I will tell you, Smithers Oasis came out with one of the things that I'm claiming is one of the best products for me here lately. And, you know, back in the day when they came out with U-glue strips and dashes, I still say that's the one product in the last 5 or 10 years that has changed my life dramatically. I can't work during the day without them. But the brick trays. How many of you use the brick trays? Listen, folks, if you're not on board with the brick tray, you're missing the boat. Number one, they're very inexpensive. Number two, they're a lifesaver. We all have floral foam in our shop, and all you have to do is put a brick in it and tape it in, and it's ready to go. Absolutely love it. We're using them for centerpieces or runners down the center of a table. Before, we were using raquettes or even using casket saddles. Now we have a brick tray, and it costs a lot less. On this particular design, there is a triple on either end and a double in the middle. And this structure here is the stand, metal stand from Accent Decor. They come in a nickel finish, and I spray painted them with Design Master 14 karat gold. And I had them to secure me a 1x6 board. Most of the time I use a 4.5 to 5 foot. This one is 6 feet. And then I take that board, and normally I wrap it in a piece of fabric. So the people sitting underneath, when they look up, they're just seeing a piece of fabric. And depending on your decor, you can do that. In the workroom, when you get up close to look at this, you'll see that I've used a pink fabric. That's what we had access to. And I wrapped the board in that and secured it. Really, really easy. So what do you think? This would be something that would be like in an entryway, or it could be at a head table, and the bride and groom would sit here, and then you would have something low across the front. And one of the things I wanted to show you is these beautiful containers from FTD. Absolutely love them. If you are FTD shop, I do encourage you to check out some of their containers. We at the shop find that many times we can use these for rental pieces versus an everyday order a lot of times. And I love the geometric shape of this particular vase. Absolutely love it. And we just created this repetitive design on the table to add interest. And I love this linen. What do you think about that? Isn't that beautiful? Any questions on the mechanics of this? Nobody? Yes, ma'am. How many roses? How many flowers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There was about 15 hydrangeas there. And I want to say that there's 25 roses in this section and there may be 12 to 15 in this section. So close to 75. But now it's only finished on one side for the show. I did not finish it on the other side to conserve product. But if you get up close and see it, you'll see the brick tray on the back. Any other questions on the mechanics? And many times, one of the things that we requested that didn't make it, those glass orbs that look like teardrops that you can put a tea light candle in, you can suspend those from this. You can also invert tulips and suspend them. Different things you can do to embellish that. So I hope you like that. What do you think about this big cake? Big cake, isn't it? How am I doing on time? Because you know I love to talk. I sent an email and I said, do you think it would be possible if we could get a faux cake, at least 5, 6 tiers? And they said, let me go to work on it. And they sent me a picture, and you know things don't do it justice in a picture. I didn't realize it was as huge as it was. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. And one of the things that we did with this cake is it came with the permanent flowers attached to it. And I embellished it with some fresh flowers. But this geometric wreath, you see that wreath that's on the table over here? I had an extra one. And I laid it on this and used it as a riser. And it became part of the mechanics of the cake. And I absolutely loved it. And then I took those calla lilies and wove it through the geometric structure, adding more movement, but bringing more attention to the structure itself. It was pretty without it, but it kind of faded away. But with those callas woven within the structure, your eyes brought to the structure, and it's more obvious. And I hope when you're thinking and talking with brides and they want something different, this would definitely be an option to ask. How many of you have seen those lanterns that look like the terrariums from the 80s that were metal and they have that brushed gold, whatever? I have had weddings where we've used them. I've got a bride right now who has 60-something of those different lanterns in different shapes she's bought from different places. And she loves the geometric look. When I get back, I'm sending her a picture of this because she loves the geometric shape. And I think this would be a great selling point to a bride. What do you think? I hope you like that. Now, one of the things that I often talk about with a bride when we're talking about reception is what kind of linens are you having? And many times they will say, we're just having white. And I try to encourage a bride that every detail, we need to look at every detail. If you're already paying for linen and you're paying for white, splurge a couple dollars more and get a color or a print. It changes the dynamics. It also makes my flowers look better. And it also makes the room look better. I absolutely loved when Connie Douglin called and said, we're going to give you some linens. Go online, check it out and see what you like. This is called a vintage veil. And you can rent this in a complete linen like it is here. Or just a topper or an overlay. I absolutely love it. They had it over a white. I put it under that Marsala cranberry color, therefore playing off the color in the flowers of the cake. But I absolutely loved this particular linen. Now, when we're talking about linens, of course, this linen will probably rent for more than your traditional linen, but we're only going to accent it on the cake table. You follow me? So if you're interested and you do use linens, see Connie Douglan out there. I do appreciate them donating the linens, but this is an absolutely stunning, stunning linen. So let's give them a hand. Now, when we were talking about brides, we talk about budgets. And when I do a reception for a bride, and they have 30-something tables, one of the things that I like to do is I like to break up those tables and do a collection. I don't want every table to be the same. You know, if a bride says, well, I only have $60 to spend on a table, I have found that many colleagues will put the same thing on every table. And I'm not saying that's anything wrong, but to me it's not as interesting. And I like to take that $60 or $65 and maybe put something in the $40 range or $45 range on a table. Take the remaining part of that money and add it to another table. And instead of doing $65, I may have, $75 or $80. Does that make sense? And then say if we had 30 tables, I would do 10, 10, and 10 and spread it out throughout the room. And most of the time I do something whether it's a collection of vintage bottles or individual vases, that will be the low end point with some luminaries or candles. And then the next range would be something like this with some luminaries or votives. And then the other one would have something with height to it. So today when we're talking about our blue segment, does everybody know that blue is the color of 2020? I am loving it, absolutely loving it. And so I wanted to do a collection dedicated to blue because so many times people love blue flowers. We get calls all the time wanting blue, and we're very limited when it comes to blue flowers that are available every day. So to see blue come to the forefront, I absolutely loved and jumped at the opportunity. So I've used these bolder colors, bolder shades of the blue on the table, and I chose to use the lighter shade of blue on the tablecloth and the linen. That just allows this to really pop. And these are very, very simple. This is a cobalt blue FTD container. No rocket science here. There's some hydrangeas in it with a little bit of the uke. And you can see that there's a collection of 3 of those on the table. Now, for this to go on one table, we need a bigger table. We need a 72 inch. Here, I wanted to showcase the delphinium so that it stood on its own. So I chose to use the tree fern. We didn't have access to trick. Trick would have been a little bit brighter maybe. But when you don't have that in your shop, you improvise. And I had plenty of tree fern. So how many of you have given tree fern a haircut? You didn't know you were a stylist, did you? So I took tree fern and I gave it a haircut. And then I inserted little pieces of thistle to bring that color down. But yet it's a muted color. So when you look at this arrangement, you see that electric delphinium coming out. So many times we forget to pay close attention to color. You know, a lot of people love to play with color and mix all kind of colors and things. For me, you wouldn't tell it by that over there, per se, but I'm more of a monochromatic person. I love monochromatic stuff, and to me it's very dramatic. And so on this light linen, to have that delphinium is absolutely gorgeous. And then we just took some small vases with just loose stems, nothing fancy, very natural there. And then I wanted to show you this. What do you think about that? Isn't that gorgeous? This is an FTD container. It's part of their luxury line, and it is very heavy. And I have taken U-glue strips rather, and placed on the bottom, turned one of the vases upside down first, put U-glue strips on it, and set one on top of it. And I'm going to pick it up by the top one, and you can see how strong that is. Don't be afraid to use those dashes and strips. And when this is over, I want you to pick this vase up. It is very heavy. It's thick glass. But it also picks up the color of whatever it's next to. and it's sitting on that light linen. Doesn't it look blue? Hope you like that. What do you think? Isn't this gorgeous? When I saw these accent decor geometric wreaths in the catalog, I actually saw them at the World Cup, and I said I had to have some, and so I wanted to use them in the show. And then I found out later that, of course, we can't suspend anything from the ceiling. I wanted to have some hanging from the ceiling. So when I got here, I'm thinking, what are we going to do? And so this is a brick tray, a triple brick tray. Remember, if you don't have them, you need to get them. Absolutely love it. And I placed this geometric wire structure, and I pressed it down in the foam. And in between the wire brackets, I took a black zip tie and went around the bottom and zip tied in 2 different places the metal structure. So we have it. It's good and stable. And I created this garden look. One of the things that we're seeing taking place without the eucalyptus for that one wedding I'm doing, she loved the lush greens. She just didn't want that bohemian. She wanted a more garden feel versus the bohemian with the eucalyptus. So you can see we've made these table runners, and they're floral runners that run across the table and down the table. And then we've taken the candlesticks and we've used them in the cylinder vases, because you know if you're using open flame, they have to be what? Contained. And I also took those candlesticks and put a U-glue strip on the bottom and stuck it to the glass, so that when you're transporting or picking it up, that candlestick, that metal candlestick, is not shifting around in that glass cylinder. Okay? Now, the mechanics on the table runner. Many times we've seen the table runner run down the middle of the table and drape off each end. I wanted to do it where there were 2 coming off the table. And what I used for my mechanics there is the Smithers Oasis tile boards. I'm correct. Absolutely love them. And they come 3 squares wide. And I took a box cutter and cut it down to just 2 to get my width. And on the end, there's 2 boards. One's on the table and one's hanging on the table. And my friend Sharon McGukin shared this with me, and I'm giving her credit. Take a hole punch and punch holes into the board, the foam board, the corrugated board that it's on, and use zip ties to tie the 2 boards together. And then it bends. Now, I will tell you, when tile boards are wet, they become heavy. So when you pick them up, and you're going to pick it up this way, you need to have both hands under it, because it will sag, and if it sags, it will pop. We don't want it to pop. So when you're carrying these, like from the workroom here, I took and laid them out in a long floral box and transported them that way. When you pick it up, you make sure you have your hand in the center of one and in the center of the other when you pick it up, because they are very heavy. This was made yesterday morning, and we sprayed it down. And as of an hour or so ago, I checked everything. I don't think we had anything expired. So I encourage you that it's okay, if you have cooler space, it's okay to design in advance and put it in the cooler. A lot of times for me, when I'm dealing especially with hydrangeas, it's okay for me to design in advance and put it in the cooler, and I prepare that if I have to replace 2 or 3, that's worth it to me time-wise, because I was able to do it in advance and not have to be rushed at the last minute. When do you start on your wedding flowers for a Saturday event? Wednesday? Thursday? Tuesday? I normally get my flowers in on a Monday, and as much as I want them in on Monday, normally something don't come till Tuesday. But normally Monday is arrival and processing. And then we normally start on certain things on Tuesday. My body flowers normally are done on Friday. But everything pretty much is done. Unless I'm busy or have something else going on, most of the time by lunch or at least by close of Thursday, everything's done except for body flowers. It's just trial and error. One thing I did find with hydrangeas, we buy the select hydrangea, which is the standard. And, you know, they say no matter how long you've been in the business, you never get too old to learn something. I had a colleague come work with me, and she was there to do a wedding, and she said, "Randy, why are your hydrangeas in the cooler?" And I said, "Well, they've hydrated. I put them in the cooler." She says, "No, don't put them in the cooler. When you get them, put them in water and leave them out." She said they will actually bloom on out and get bigger. And so the next time we got hydrangeas, I cut them, put them in a bucket of water, and I moved them over to the other end of the shop where I normally keep my lilies as they're opening, and left them. And I will promise you, the next day, some of them had almost doubled in size, and that's no exaggeration. So if you're using hydrangeas and you want to buy the selects, which are normally about like this large, leave them out. And if anytime anybody shares a tip or something with you, test it yourself. Don't ever take the word, not even from me. I encourage you to always test something. So the next time you get hydrangeas in, leave 2 of them out. Leave them out a day or so. And it made a firm believer out of me. Yes, ma'am.
Something else I do with our hydrangeas is we use proponent buckets.
Right.
So we will pretty much do 2 hand ties of pins as we're processing them.
Okay.
And drop them in a proponent. So there's always 20 per bucket. So if you have a massive wedding, you always know how many hydrangeas you have left as you're going on.
Oh. Cool. Okay, did you hear her? She said when they process their hydrangeas, they bundle 20 stems together and just tie it off with something. No? Just in your hand. Put 20 in your hand and put 20 in a bucket. And that way, if you do it that way, then you can look at your buckets and easily count that I have 20, 20, 40, 60, 80, however many, you know how many you have left. That's a good thing to do. Another thing is snapdragons, bells of Ireland. When they come in, they always curved. And a grower told me one time that in the States, we always process our flowers and put them too soon in the cooler. Your bells, your line flowers, stock, so forth and so on, cut it, process it, and leave it out overnight. And it has been a proven fact that I would dare say probably 95% of my stuff has all just went straight up just like that, simply by not putting it in the cooler directly, leaving it out. And those tips helped me tremendously. My last piece here, I wanted to show you, everybody's familiar with the moon gate. And the thing of it is I absolutely love the gold, and I wanted more gold in this. But yesterday when we went outside to spray, the wind was so robust that my fingernails were all gold, my jacket was gold, and my brand new glasses of 2 weeks now has gold specks all over the lens, and I don't know what I'm going to do to get them off. So I stopped. And Andrew was a wonderful helper, and we had some, he makes the time pass really fast. We had some wonderful conversations. He created the moon gate for me, and he braved the elements and went outside and sprayed what little bit of gold we have. I wanted more gold in it. Metallics are very popular on social media and Pinterest. I don't know how long it will take to become popular in my area in the South, in South Georgia, but it is truly on trend. And so we wanted to include some of that. And I love the way he used the Commodore or Jade, whichever you call it, how it's just free flowing out. And it's going through the center of the moon gate, not out on the edge, so you can actually see more of the structure. So hope you like the moon gate. And thank you to Andrew for all his hard work. We had some amazing volunteers in the workroom. What do you think of the lush garland on the floor? One of the things I wanted to show you is for me, and it may not be an issue for you guys, because, in South Georgia, we struggle with resources all the time. Either you don't have access to it, or if you do have access to it, the freight kills you to get it there. So we struggle a lot of times with different things. And we're seeing where garlands on the table, on the floor, are very popular, but they can also be very expensive. And for me, I have a choice of either purchasing them or making one. And a colleague shared with me something that just blew my mind. And I'm like, why didn't I think of this earlier? And why didn't I do it? And since then, I have used it twice, and we'll be using it 2 more times in these upcoming weddings. But this on the floor is actually a faux Christmas garland. There's a company that I do design shows for in Georgia and North Carolina called Sims Pottery Incorporated. And they sell a designer Christmas garland that is 16 or either 20 inches wide, which is a very lush garland. And you can buy it in 50-foot sections, okay? And I think a 50-foot section is $60, $65. But we took this faux garland, and Andrew actually bundled up some greenery, laid it in there, took 2 of the long laterals on the garland and twisted it in. Went to the next one, twisted it in, just as if you were twisting ribbon or fabric into a Christmas garland. And it went fast, just like that. For you that are doing, whether it's a garland on the floor or a table or over a doorway, you can use this as a base, and it's very inexpensive. And then put your greens in it, put your cages in it, and add your florals. But for me, that was one of those aha moments where this saves me so much time and so much money. I have even placed this, they created this like a photo op area at a reception, and it was wooden pallets stacked to create a wall. And across, I did an L, and I put that faux garland up, and I went up there and free-handed cedar and plumosa and ruscus in it, free-handed, and then had a cage in the corner and designed out from it. It went just like that, quick and easy. Now, to create the floral part, you noticed I told you I sliced the tile board, and it left me a row of single squares. I took 2 single squares and designed on half of that tile board and left the other side bare and slid that and laid the garland on top of it. And I did one on either side. So you have one here and one there. Here, there. Just like that. And then you just slide it right in. And there you have it. What do you think about these lanterns? Aren't they gorgeous? These are accent decor. And there again, these candles, I took U-glue strips to the bottom of the candle and stuck it to the bottom of the lantern. So in transit, if you're pulling them, you don't have to wait till you get to the venue to put your candle in. They're ready to go. I'm telling you, if you're not using U-glue, you're missing out. I hope you like what I've done for you. Any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. That particular company is simspotteryinc.com. Sims, I'm sorry. SIMS, potteryinc.com. And I'm not here to promote them or anything of that nature. That's where I've got that from. And that's my personal garland. I brought it from home. And the good thing about, they sell it in a 9-foot section, which is what a typical garland is at Christmas. But when I found out that they sold it in a 50-foot section, it made my life wonderful because, if you're doing it on a side of a banister or something, you have that continuous thing. Plus, you can cut it to the length that you need it. So it saved a lot of time and money. I know people frown many times on using permanent or faux stuff with fresh, But this is a base, and you can't see it until you get right up on it, and it saves time. People, if there's one thing, well, let's just say two things that you take away from my program today. There's two. Time is money. Okay? If you're not charging for your time, you're not succeeding at your potential level. Your time is worth something. And the second thing is you make money off what you buy, not what you sell. Did that register with you? You make money off what you buy, not what you sell. You may sell a $1,000 arrangement, but if you've got $999 in it, you didn't make any money, okay? And by buying this faux garland saves me time, which turns around and saves me money. Any other questions? Yes?
On the canopy, do you secure your trays to the piece of wood, or is it just?
It's just up there. And most of the time, if I'm using that, it's in an indoor setting. I would not recommend that for an outdoor setting, especially where I live. The weather's just undependable. But you could secure it. But for me, it's not going anywhere because it's so heavy. If there's a compromise, it would come from here, from the legs or the table. Someone over here had a question. Yes, ma'am.
Where did you purchase the round art?
The moon gate was donated, but okay, NAPCO. Okay, absolutely. There's several outlets, but they have some beautiful ones, and they also have it in gold, don't they?
Yep, they have that one just like that in bright gold.
Bright gold. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Okay. She asked how the flowers were attached to the moon gate. Actually, he came through with the jade or commodore and actually wired that on with bullion. Was that correct? Bullion. Right, bind wire, and he put his greenery on, and then he came back with the small Smithers Oasis cages. They have the little handle on them, the little square rectangle cage. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 cages on there. Yes, ma'am.
How do you keep the garland from everything going forward? It just seems like it would.
If you're putting it on something,
Yeah, like the table.
well, this is not going anywhere because it's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And they're at the same weight, so they're pulling on one another. The tension, I guess you'd call that physics. I'm not part of the Big Bang Theory, but they're both the same weight, so it's just going to stay there. Yes. Any other questions? Well, again, I want to say thank you to you guys. I hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you for coming. Thanks to the association for inviting me. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here. And thanks to FTD for supporting education and allowing folks like myself to come out and share what I love. And thanks to Accent Decor, Smithers Oasis, Syndicate Sales, Connie Douglan, Linens, and all the fresh product sponsors. You know, folks, if you get a chance to go out in the exhibit hall to the sponsors, please stop by their table and tell them how much you appreciate their support. It's very important that we, as a floral community, validate and appreciate those sponsors, because without them, this weekend would not be possible. So thank you, and have a great day.
Absolutely. Randy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We sure appreciate it on behalf of the Great Lakes Floral Association. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.